The party that changed everything. Jessica Parker pressed her back against the brick wall of the downtown Boston loft, watching her best friend Rachel bounce around the crowded room with infectious energy. The music pulsed through the exposed wooden beams, and fairy lights twinkled against the industrial windows overlooking the harbor. Everything about this surprise 30th birthday party screamed Rachel's handiwork, from the champagne tower to the custom cocktails, named after embarrassing moments from their college days. Jess tugged at the hem of her emerald green dress, feeling simultaneously grateful and overwhelmed. After the disaster that had been her last relationship, parties were not exactly her comfort zone anymore. 3 months ago, her boyfriend of 2 years had broken up with her via a carefully crafted email, citing their incompatible life goals. The fact that he had sent it while she was planning their weekend getaway still stung. "Stop hiding in the corner." Rachel appeared at her elbow, pressing another drink into her hand. "This is your night. You're supposed to be having fun, not brooding." "I'm not brooding," Jess protested, taking a sip of the dangerously sweet cocktail. "I'm observing." "There's a difference." "You're observing the exit strategy," Rachel corrected, her dark eyes sparkling with mischief. "But before you even think about sneaking out, I have one more surprise for you." Jess's stomach dropped. "Rachel, no? You didn't." "Oh, but I did." Rachel's grin widened. "And trust me, you're going to love this. He should be here any minute." The mysterious stranger. 20 minutes later, Jess found herself cornered by her coworker Amanda, who was explaining in excruciating detail her new diet plan. When she noticed a shift in the room's energy, conversations quieted slightly, and several heads turned toward the entrance. Jess craned her neck to see what had captured everyone's attention. A man stood in the doorway, and even from across the room, Jess could tell he was striking. Tall, probably over 6 feet, with dark hair that looked professionally styled but slightly mussed, as if he had run his fingers through it on the way up. He wore a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, dark-fitted pants, and an expression that seemed to hover between amusement and uncertainty. "Oh my God," Amanda whispered beside her. "Is that the entertainment? Because if so, your friend Rachel really went all out." Jess felt her cheeks flush hot. The entertainment, of course. Rachel had been making vague comments all week about a special surprise, winking suggestively every time Jess asked for details. This was exactly the kind of over-the-top gesture Rachel would make, thinking it would be hilarious and liberating. "I cannot believe she actually hired someone," Jess muttered, already planning her revenge. "This is so embarrassing." But as the man's eyes scanned the room, Jess found herself unable to look away. There was something different about him, something that did not quite fit the scenario Amanda had suggested. He did not carry himself like someone there to perform. He looked almost as uncomfortable as Jess felt, which was oddly endearing. Their eyes met across the room, and Jess felt a jolt of recognition, though she was certain they had never met before. He smiled, hesitant but warm, and started making his way through the crowd toward her. The awkward introduction, "Please tell me you're not actually about to do what I think you're about to do," Jess said when he reached her, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. The cocktails were definitely affecting her filter. The man's eyebrows rose slightly, confusion crossing his handsome features. "I'm sorry, what do you think I'm about to do?" "Look, I appreciate the effort, really. But my friend Rachel has a weird sense of humor, and this whole situation is just mortifying for everyone involved," Jess continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "So maybe we can just pretend you forgot the address and you can leave. And I'll pay you anyway for your time and trouble." Stared at her for a long moment, and Jess watched as understanding slowly dawned in his gray eyes. A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, not mocking but genuinely amused. "You think I'm a stripper, aren't you?" Jess asked, now feeling less certain. "Rachel said she hired entertainment." "She did," he confirmed, and Jess's mortification intensified. "But then," he continued, "she hired me to bartend. I'm Cameron Blake. I own the catering company Rachel works with sometimes." Jess wanted the polished concrete floor to open up and swallow her whole. "Oh, no. I am so sorry. I just assumed and everyone was looking. And you're very well dressed for a bartender. And I'm going to stop talking now." Cameron laughed. a genuine sound that seemed to ease the tension in his shoulders. It's fine, really. I've been called worse things. Though I have to say, this is definitely the most interesting introduction I've had at a work event. This is not a work event for you. This is my birthday party, which means I just insulted someone Rachel hired to help, which means I'm the worst person ever. Jess covered her face with her free hand. Can we start over, please? Real conversation begins absolutely. Cameron extended his hand formally. Hi, I'm Cameron Blake. I own Blake Catering and Events. Rachel hired us for tonight, but I usually don't work parties myself anymore. I made an exception because she's been a great client, and she promised this would be a fun crowd. Jess shook his hand, trying to ignore the warmth that spread through her at the contact. I'm Jessica Parker, but everyone calls me Jess. I'm the birthday girl. The person who just made a complete fool of herself. And apparently someone who needs to have a long conversation with Rachel about setting expectations. Jess, for what it's worth, your honesty's refreshing. Most people at these parties just pretend everything is perfect even when it's not. He glanced around the room with an expert eye. Though I have to say, Rachel did an excellent job with the setup. The lighting alone probably took hours to get right. She's annoyingly talented at this stuff, Jess agreed, feeling herself relax slightly. I plan corporate events for a living, and she still manages to make me look amateur with her personal projects. Cameron's interest visibly sharpened. You're in event planning? What kind of corporate events? Conferences, mostly. Product launches, annual meetings, the occasional team-building retreat that everyone pretends to enjoy but secretly hates. Jess surprised herself by continuing. Usually, she hated talking about work at social events, but something about Cameron made it feel natural. I actually just accepted a new position starting Monday. Bigger company, more responsibility, probably more stress, but the pay is significantly better, so I'm trying to focus on that instead of the panic. Congratulations, Cameron said, and he sounded like he meant it. New beginnings can be terrifying, but they're also exciting. Where are you starting? Blake Industries, actually. It's a manufacturing and technology company downtown. I'll be coordinating all their corporate events and managing their conference center. Jess paused, a thought occurring to her. Wait, Blake, is that a coincidence? Or are you related? Something flickered across Cameron's face, too quick for Jess to read. Small world, isn't it? But tonight, let's not talk about work. It's your birthday. You should be celebrating, not thinking about Monday morning. The connection deepens. Rachel appeared then, slightly breathless, and holding another champagne bottle. I see you two have met. Cameron, thank you so much for coming yourself. I know you usually send your team. Wouldn't have missed it, Cameron replied smoothly. Though I should probably actually do some bartending before your guests stage a rebellion. The bar is fully stocked. And my regular team has it covered, Rachel assured him. But there was a knowing glint in her eye as she looked between Cameron and Jess. But if you want to help out, I definitely won't stop you. Jess, can I borrow you for 1 second? Emergency in the kitchen. Before Jess could protest, Rachel had grabbed her arm and was pulling her toward the back of the loft. Once they were out of earshot, Rachel spun around, practically vibrating with excitement. Okay, first of all, you're welcome. Second, Cameron Blake, the actual Cameron Blake, is here at your party, talking to you, and looking at you like you're the only person in the room. Do you have any idea how many women would kill to be in your position right now? I thought he was a stripper, Rachel. I literally tried to pay him to leave. Jess groaned. And what do you mean the actual Cameron Blake? Is he famous or something? Rachel's jaw dropped. You really don't know? Jess, Blake Industries, the company you're starting to work at on Monday. Cameron Blake is the CEO. He's the Blake, youngest CEO in the company's history. He took over from his father 2 years ago and has basically transformed the entire business. He's been in every business magazine, won awards, the whole thing. The room suddenly felt too warm. That can't be right. He said he owns a catering company. He does, as a side project. Started it in college and kept it going because he actually enjoys it. But his main job is running a multi-million-dollar corporation. Rachel gripped Jess's shoulders. The corporation you're about to work for, Jess, he's going to be your boss. The truth comes out. Jess's mind reeled. The gorgeous, kind, slightly awkward man she had been talking to was not just some random bartender. He was Cameron Blake, her new boss, the CEO of the company she would start working for in less than 48 hours. And she had accused him of being a stripper. "I need to leave," Jess said suddenly. "Right now. I need to go home and possibly never leave my apartment again." "You absolutely do not," Rachel said firmly. "First of all, it's your birthday party. Second, he clearly doesn't care about the misunderstanding. Did you see how he was looking at you? That man is interested, Jess. Really interested. He's my boss, Rachel. Or he will be. This is a disaster. He's not technically your boss. You'll be in events, he's the CEO. That's like 3 levels of separation." But even Rachel's enthusiasm seemed slightly dimmed by this revelation. "Okay, yes, it's complicated. But you were actually talking to him, Jess, for the first time in months. You looked happy and engaged and like yourself again. Don't let fear ruin that." Jess knew Rachel was right, but the weight of embarrassment and anxiety pressed down on her chest. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. Through the crowd, she could see Cameron back at the bar area, talking easily with some of the other guests, but occasionally glancing in her direction. When their eyes met again, he smiled, that same warm, genuine smile from before. And despite everything, despite the mortification and the complication and the absolute absurdity of the situation, Jess felt herself smile back. Maybe Rachel was right. Maybe this was terrifying and complicated, but also the start of something worth exploring. Or maybe Jess was just slightly drunk on champagne and terrible decisions. Either way, she found herself walking back across the room, toward him, her heart pounding but her steps certain. Whatever happened next, at least it would not be boring. Cameron watched her approach, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. This was definitely going to be complicated. But as he handed her a fresh drink and asked her to tell him more about her worst event planning disaster, Jess realized she was okay with complicated. For the first time in months, she felt alive. Waking up to consequences, sunlight stabbed through the gaps in Jessica's curtains like an accusation. She groaned and pulled the pillow over her head, trying to block out both the light and the fragmented memories of the previous night. Her mouth tasted like champagne and regret. Her head throbbed with each heartbeat. The party, Cameron. Oh, God. Jess sat up too quickly, immediately regretting it as the room spun. Pieces of the evening came back in uncomfortable clarity. After learning who Cameron really was, she had not run away like her instincts screamed at her to do. Instead, fueled by champagne courage and Rachel's encouragement, she had spent most of the night talking to him. Really talking. About her failed relationship, her fears about the new job, her dreams of maybe starting her own event company someday. Things she had not shared with anyone except Rachel, and he had listened. More than that, he had shared too. About the pressure of taking over his father's company, about keeping the catering business because it reminded him of simpler times, about feeling trapped between who he was expected to be and who he actually wanted to be at some point. They had ended up on the roof deck, away from the noise of the party. The Boston skyline glittered around them. Cameron had been so close she could smell his cologne, something woodsy and expensive. They had talked for hours, until Rachel finally found them and insisted. Cameron had to leave because it was past 2 a.m. Jess remembered him taking her hand. Remembered the way his thumb had traced circles on her palm. Remembered him saying something about Monday, about how he was looking forward to seeing her again. And then, mortifyingly, she remembered standing on her toes and kissing him. Just a brief press of lips, but enough to make her entire body flush with heat even now. 12 hours later, he had kissed her back, softly, sweetly, like she was something precious. And then he had smiled against her mouth and whispered, "We should probably talk about this on Monday." Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. 3 messages from Rachel. "Are you alive? Please tell me you remember last night. Cameron just texted me to make sure you got home okay. Cameron Blake is asking about you. Call me immediately." Jess dropped the phone like it had burned her. Monday was tomorrow. Tomorrow, she would walk into Blake Industries as the new events coordinator. And her boss, the CEO of the entire company, was someone she had kissed at her birthday party? Professional, she muttered to herself, stumbling toward the shower. I can be professional. Adults have awkward encounters all the time and then work together successfully. This is fine. Everything is fine. But as the hot water poured over her, washing away the physical remnants of the party, Jess could not shake the memory of how right it had felt to talk to Cameron, to be seen by him in a way she had not felt seen in years. First day, disaster's Monday morning arrived with cruel punctuality. Jess stood outside the gleaming glass tower that housed Blake Industries, trying to calm her racing heart. She had chosen her most professional outfit, a navy blue suit that Rachel said made her look both competent and unapproachable. The unapproachable part felt particularly important today. The lobby was all marble and chrome, the Blake Industries logo prominent on the wall behind the reception desk. Jess checked in, received her temporary badge, and was directed to the 11th floor where the events department was located. The elevator ride felt eternal. Jess rehearsed her professional greeting in her mind. Polite but distant. Acknowledge the party briefly if necessary, then pivot to work topics. Establish boundaries immediately. The doors opened to reveal a bright, modern office space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. A woman in her 50s with kind eyes and an efficient manner approached immediately. Jessica Parker. I'm Diane Chen, Head of Human Resources. Welcome to Blake Industries. Let me show you to your office and introduce you to the team. The morning passed in a blur of introductions and orientations. Jess met her team, for coordinators who seemed genuinely happy to have her there. Her office was larger than she expected, with a view of the harbor and enough space for the planning boards she'd like to use for complex events. By lunch, she was starting to feel like maybe, just maybe, she could pull this off. The executive team usually has lunch brought in on Mondays, Diane explained as they walked back from the cafeteria. It's a working lunch where they discuss the week ahead. Cameron, our CEO, likes to have department heads join periodically. This week, he's asked to meet with you. Jess's carefully constructed calm shattered. Today? He wants to meet today? Is that a problem? Diane's eyebrows rose slightly. No, of course not. Just unexpected for my first day. Jess forced a smile. Trying to ignore the panic climbing her throat, the unavoidable meeting at 1 o'clock, Jess found herself outside the executive conference room on the 20th floor. Through the glass walls, she could see Cameron sitting at the head of a long table, looking every inch the powerful CEO in a charcoal suit. He was reviewing something on his tablet, his expression focused and serious. This was not the man from the roof deck. This was not the person who had talked about feeling trapped by expectations. This was Cameron Blake, CEO. And she was about to have her first official meeting with him, while the memory of their kiss still burned in her mind. She knocked, and he looked up. For just a moment, his professional mask slipped, and she saw recognition and something warmer flash across his face. Then it was gone, replaced by polite formality. Miss Parker, please come in, he stood, gesturing to the chair across from him. Thank you for joining me. I like to meet with new department heads personally during their first week. Of course. Mr. Blake, I appreciate you taking the time. Jess sat. Proud that her voice remained steady. Cameron. Please, he said, and there was the briefest hint of a smile. We're not particularly formal here, despite what the suits might suggest. For a moment, they just looked at each other. The professional distance Jess had been trying to maintain felt flimsy and artificial. About Friday night, Jess started, deciding to address it head-on. I want to apologize for any inappropriate behavior. It was unprofessional, and it won't happen again. Cameron's expression shifted. Something almost like disappointment crossing his features before he schooled it back to neutral. There's nothing to apologize for. You didn't know who I was, and even if you had, you weren't an employee yet. What happened at your party stays at your party. Still, I think it's important to establish clear boundaries going forward, Jess continued, hating how formal and cold she sounded. I take this job very seriously, and I don't want there to be any confusion about my professionalism or commitment. I would never question either of those things. Cameron leaned back in his chair, studying her. Jess, can I be honest with you? The use of her first name sent a small thrill through her that she tried desperately to suppress. Please, I knew who you were before I showed up at your party, he said quietly. Rachel mentioned she was planning a birthday celebration for her friend, who was starting at Blake Industries the following Monday. I put it together. I could have sent one of my managers to handle the event, but I chose to come myself. Jess's carefully constructed walls crumbled. Why? Because Rachel had mentioned you before. Mentioned that you were brilliant at your job but going through a rough time. Mentioned that you were kind and funny and passionate about creating meaningful experiences for people. Cameron's gray eyes held hers, and I was curious. So I came to your party, fully intending to introduce myself properly, explain the connection, and maybe get to know you a little before Monday. But I accused you of being a stripper, Jess finished, feeling heat rise in her cheeks. A genuine smile broke through his professional facade. You did. And it was the most honest, unfiltered interaction I've had with anyone in months. Everyone in my life treats me like the CEO first and a person second. But you just saw some guy at a party and told him exactly what you thought. It was refreshing. So you decided to just not mention the whole CEO thing? Jess could not decide if she was angry or touched by this admission. I was going to, Cameron insisted. But then we started talking, really talking, and I didn't want it to end. I didn't want you to suddenly start treating me differently because of my title. I wanted one night where I could just be Cameron, not Cameron Blake, CEO. He paused. That was selfish of me, and I apologize. If you want to request a transfer to report to someone else, I'll make it happen. No questions asked, no impact on your career here. Unexpected Honesta just sat back processing this information. Part of her wanted to be angry at the deception, but she understood the impulse behind it. Not she spent the entire party wishing. She could be anyone other than the woman whose life was falling apart. I don't want a transfer, she heard herself say. I want this job. I've worked hard to get it, and I'm not going to let an awkward personal situation derail my career. Relief flooded Cameron's features. Good, that's good. So we can move forward professionally. Yes, Jess agreed. Then because... Apparently, she could not help herself around this man, she added. But I need you to know something too. That conversation we had on the roof, the things I told you, I've never shared that with anyone except my best friend. I don't open up easily, and I certainly don't kiss people I just met. The fact that I did both those things with you terrifies me. Cameron leaned forward, his professional mask slipping further. It terrifies me too. I don't go to events I don't have to attend. I don't spend hours talking to people I just met. And I definitely don't kiss employees, even ones who technically aren't employees yet. His voice dropped lower. But there was something about you, Jess. Something that made me want to break all my own rules. The air between them felt charged, dangerous. Jess knew she should redirect the conversation back to work, establish those boundaries she had mentioned. But she could not seem to make herself do it. So what do we do now? She asked quietly. We focus on work, Cameron said, though he did not sound entirely convinced. You're here to revamp our corporate events program, and based on your portfolio, you're going to be excellent at it. I'm here to run a company. Those things don't have to be complicated by anything else. You're right, Jess agreed, trying to ignore the disappointment settling in her chest. But Cameron continued, and Jess's heart skipped. If at some point, in the future, after you're established here and there's no question about your position or competence, if we both still feel this pull between us, maybe we could revisit this conversation. As two adults who happen to work in the same building, it was not a promise, barely even a possibility. But it was something, a tiny window left open in what could have been a firmly closed door. That seems reasonable, Jess said, allowing herself a small smile. Good. Cameron's professional demeanor snapped back into place, though his eyes remained warm. Now, let me brief you on the annual shareholders meeting coming up in 6 weeks. It's the biggest event of the year, and I'd like you to take the lead on it. For the next hour, they talk strategy and logistics, and Jess felt herself relaxing into the role. This she could do. This was her expertise, her passion. Cameron was sharp and detailed, oriented. asking questions that showed he understood the complexity of large-scale event planning. They disagreed on a few points, but the discussion felt collaborative rather than confrontational. When the meeting finally ended, Jess gathered her notes and stood to leave. At the door, she paused and turned back. "Cameron, thank you for being honest with me. About why you came to the party? It would have been easier to just let me think it was a coincidence." "I don't want easy," he said, looking up from his tablet. "Not with you." Jess left the conference room with her heart pounding and her mind racing. This job was going to be either the best decision she had ever made or a complete disaster, possibly both. 6 weeks of tension, the annual shareholders meeting loomed like a storm on the horizon. Jess threw herself into the planning with an intensity that impressed even her experienced team. Every detail had to be perfect, from the seating arrangements that navigated complex corporate politics to the multimedia presentation that would showcase Blake Industries' achievements. Working with Cameron proved to be both easier and harder than she expected. Professionally, they were a strong team. He trusted her expertise, but pushed her to think bigger, to create an experience that would genuinely engage rather than simply inform. Their planning meetings became the highlight of her week, even as she tried to convince herself it was just because the project was exciting. But the tension between them was always there, humming beneath every interaction. The way his hand would brush hers when passing documents, the moment their eyes would meet across the conference table and hold just a beat too long. The professional distance they maintained felt increasingly artificial, a game they both knew they were playing, but neither wanted to end. Rachel called it torture. "You're both clearly into each other. The entire office can see it. Why not just go for it?" "'Cause he's the CEO and I've been here for 6 weeks, Jess reminded her for the 100th time. They were having lunch at their favorite cafe, taking a rare break from the mounting pressure of the shareholders' meeting. "I need to establish myself first. Prove that I earned this job on merit, not because the boss has a thing for me." "The boss definitely has a thing for you," Rachel said, stealing a fry from Jess's plate. "Last week at the vendor meeting, he could barely take his eyes off you during your presentation. And when that tech guy questioned your AV choices, Cameron shut him down so fast, I thought the poor man might cry." Jess smiled despite herself. That had been satisfying. He was just supporting his events coordinator. He was defending you like you were the most important person in the room. Because to him, you are. Rachel pointed a fry at her. "Look, I know you're being careful, and I respect that. But don't be so careful that you miss something real. Those don't come along often." Presentation crisis 3 days before the shareholders' meeting, disaster struck. The main presentation file, containing months of carefully compiled data and multimedia elements, became corrupted. The IT department worked frantically, but by 7 in the evening, they admitted defeat. The file was UNRECOV-led. Jess stood in the empty events office, staring at her computer screen and fighting back tears of frustration. She had backup data, but reconstructing the presentation would take hours, possibly days. Time they did not have. "Hey," Cameron's voice came from the doorway. Just told me what happened." "How bad is it?" "Catastrophic," Jess admitted, too tired to put on a brave face. "I can rebuild it, but not by Thursday. We'll have to push the meeting back." "We can't. We have board members flying in from 3 continents. Pushing back would cost hundreds of thousands in rescheduling and lost opportunities." Cameron walked into the office, loosening his tie. "What if we worked on it together? 2 people? Twice as fast? You have a company to run? You can't spend the next 48 hours rebuilding a presentation. I can, and I will." He pulled up a chair next to hers, close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. "Tell me what you need." They worked through the night. Cameron ordered food around 9, and they ate Chinese takeout while debating the order of financial slides. Around midnight, Jess caught herself laughing at one of his terrible jokes about quarterly projections and realized she had not thought about the professional distance between them and ours. "What?" Cameron asked, noticing her staring. "Nothing. Just thinking about how 6 weeks ago I thought you were a stripper, and now here we are. Got rebuilding corporate presentations at midnight." He grinned. Character growth. Very dramatic. At 3 in the morning, exhausted and slightly delirious, Jess made a mistake on a data entry. Cameron caught it, but as he leaned over to point it out, their faces ended up inches apart. The laughter died, replaced by something much more dangerous. "Ash," he said softly, and her name in his mouth felt like a caress. "We should focus on the presentation," she whispered, not moving away. "We should," he agreed, also not moving. For a long moment, they stayed frozen in that almost kiss. Then Cameron pulled back, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "I need to tell you something," he said. "And I know the timing is terrible, but if I don't say it now, I'm going to lose my nerve." Jess's heart hammered. "Okay. That night at your party, when we talked on the roof, you said you were afraid of ending up alone because you couldn't risk being hurt again. Do you remember?" She nodded, embarrassed by the memory of her vulnerability. "I told you I understood that fear. What I didn't tell you was why." Cameron turned his chair to face her fully. 3 years ago, I was engaged. Her name was Olivia, and she seemed perfect for me. My parents loved her. She came from the right background, understood the corporate world. We were planning this huge wedding, the kind of event that makes magazines. Jess stayed quiet, sensing this story was important. 2 months before the wedding, I overheard her on the phone with her mother. She was laughing about how boring I was, how predictable. Said she was marrying the company, not the man. But that was fine because the company would give her the lifestyle she wanted. Cameron's jaw tightened at the memory. I called off the wedding. It was a scandal, cost us some business relationships, disappointed a lot of people. But I couldn't marry someone who saw me as a means to an end. Cameron, I'm so sorry. The point is, he continued, I spent the last 3 years telling myself it was safer to keep people at arm's length, to be the CEO and nothing else. And then you accused me of being a stripper at your birthday party, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The honest truth, Jess did not know what to say. This man, who seemed to have everything together, carried the same scars she did. I'm not asking you for anything, Cameron said quickly. I know that timing is impossible. I know there are professional complications. But after we get through this shareholders meeting, after you've proven to everyone what I already know, you're brilliant at your job and deserve to be here, I want to take you to dinner. A real dinner, not a working lunch. Just to people who want to get to know each other better.
A what?
What if people talk? Jess asked. What if they say I only got this job because of personal reasons? Then they'd be idiots who don't recognize talent when they see it. Cameron's voice was firm. Jess, in 6 weeks, you've transformed our events program. The shareholders meeting is going to be the best we've ever had, even with this last-minute crisis. Your team respects you. The other department heads respect you. You've earned your place here 100 times over. But you're still the CEO. There will always be people who question my credibility if we're together, possibly, Cameron acknowledged. But here's what I've learned in the last 3 years. You can't live your life based on what other people might think or say. You can't let fear of judgment keep you from pursuing something that makes you happy. And you, Jess Parker, make me happier than I've been in a very long time. Tears pricked Jess's eyes. You terrify me, she admitted. Everything about this terrifies me. But that night on the roof, when you asked me what I was really afraid of, and I told you about feeling not enough, you made me feel like maybe I was wrong. Like maybe I was enough, exactly as I am. You are, Cameron said fiercely. You're more than enough. Then yes, Jess heard herself say. After the shareholders meeting, after we prove we can work together successfully, I want that dinner. I want to see where this goes, scary as it is. The smile that broke across Cameron's face was worth every ounce of fear and uncertainty. Yeah, but we really do need to finish this presentation because if this meeting is a disaster, I'll be too busy looking for a new job to go on any dates. And they worked until dawn, rebuilding the presentation piece by piece. As the sun rose over Boston Harbor, painting the office in shades of gold and pink, they finally finished. The presentation was not just rebuilt, it was better than the original, incorporating new ideas they had developed during the long night. We make a good team, Cameron said, saving the file to 3 different backup drives. We do, Jess agreed, too exhausted to overthink it. The perfect event, the shareholders meeting, was a triumph. Jess's team executed every detail flawlessly. The presentation Cameron and she had rebuilt together received a standing ovation. Multiple board members approached her afterward to compliment the professionalism and creativity of the event. After the last attendee left and her team had finished the breakdown, Jess found herself alone in the empty conference center. She had done it. Not only survived her first major event at Blake Industries, but exceeded every expectation. There you are, Cameron appeared in the doorway. Having changed from his formal suit into jeans and a casual button-down, everyone's looking for you. There's talk of a celebration dinner? I just needed a minute, Jess said, gesturing at the empty space that hours ago had held 400 people, to appreciate the fact that we pulled it off. You pulled it off. I just helped rebuild a presentation. Cameron walked into the room, stopping a few feet away from her. You were amazing today, Jess. Watching you work, seeing how you handle pressure and coordinate all those moving pieces, it was impressive. Thank you. And thank you for staying up all night to help me fix my disaster. Our disaster, he corrected. And it wasn't a disaster. It was an opportunity to work together, to build something better than what we had before. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, and Jess realized the professional distance that had felt so important 6 weeks ago now felt completely wrong. She did not want distance from this man. She wanted closeness, connection, the possibility of something real. So, she said, taking a small step toward him, about that dinner you mentioned. Cameron's eyes lit up. Yes, I'm free Saturday night. If the offer still stands, the offer definitely still stands. He closed the remaining distance between them, stopping just close enough that she could feel the electricity crackling in the small space. Fair warning, though, I'm probably going to be terrible at this. It's been 3 years since I've been on an actual date. Well, I accused you of being a stripper the first time we met, so the bar for embarrassment is already pretty low. Jess smiled up at him. I think we'll figure it out, together. Together, she confirmed. This time, when Cameron leaned in to kiss her, there was no champagne courage or birthday party chaos to blame it on. Just two people who had found each other in the most unexpected way. Choosing to be brave enough to see what came next, the kiss was soft and sweet and full of promise. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Cameron rested his forehead against hers. For the record, he murmured, you were worth the wait. Worth every complicated, terrifying moment. You too, Jess whispered back. Even if you did let me think you were a stripper. His laugh echoed through the empty conference center. And Jess thought, maybe, just maybe, taking the leap was exactly what she needed to do all along. The fear would not disappear overnight. The complications would not magically resolve themselves. But standing here with Cameron, feeling hopeful for the first time in months, she was ready to face whatever came next. Sometimes the best things in life were the ones that scared you most. Sometimes you had to risk everything for the chance at something real. And sometimes, the person you least expected turned out to be exactly what you needed. As they left the conference center hand in hand, ready to face whatever challenges and joys lay ahead, Jess felt certain of one thing. This was just the beginning of their story. And she could not wait to see what happened next.